to sit. You're right there.
Oh gosh, are we live streaming? We're live? Oh, right. Act crazy. No, I'm just kidding. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our session today, Fostering Inclusion Through Allyship, Engaging Employees Through Global Programming to Drive Inclusion Through Allyship. Over the next hour, we'll be talking about ally engagement programs and how to really maximize your journey there. So hello, my name is Isabel Porras. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm the Senior Director of Leadership, Learning, and Development at Out and Equal. And I'm thrilled to be joined by my partners, friends, colleagues from JP Morgan Chase, and I'm going to have them introduce themselves individually. Excellent.
Should I start? Okay.
Yes,
Hi, everyone. I'm Violetta Dudov. My pronouns are she, her. I lead careers and skills for Brad Baumel at the Office of LGBTQ Plus Affairs at JP Morgan Chase.
I'm Holly Yarbrough. My pronouns are she, her. In my day job, I'm a Vice President of Investments for JP Morgan. And in my gay job, I co-lead the Global Ally Council, which is a community of practice for the Office of LGBTQ Plus Affairs.
So hi everyone, my name is Sandra Boitai, my pronouns are she, her. I've been with the firm for over 5 years, and in my day job I'm based in London and I'm doing data quality management, and my current gay job is being co-chair with Holly on the Global Ally Council.
And I'm Santiago if I'm in trouble, hopefully not. My pronouns are he, him. My day job is as a software engineer in London with Sandra, and my gay job is as the co-lead for the Ally Training Program, which is fully led by volunteers, and hopefully we describe some interesting stuff that you can take away with you after this session.
So as I said, over the next hour, we're going to have a conversation. You'll see I have some notes, and that's because we're going to share some stories, but we're also going to get into some actionable tips and lessons learned. So we want to make sure that we cover those. And we also want to incorporate you as best we can. So we'll hope to have some Q&A at the end. If we don't, take a moment and note who our panelists are and find them throughout the afternoon. But we also want to ask some questions of you. So now I'd like to ask you to take out your phones if you're able. Those of you who are joining us via the internet can also open a new browser tab and go to the website you see on the screen, menti.com. Enter the code you see, 91512226. If you're doing the QR code thing, it'll take you directly in there. And if you give us some thumbs up, a little serotonin boost is always welcome with the thumbs up, but it also lets us know you're in the room. So I'm just looking at the screen and seeing those numbers go up a bit. Let's just give you a second, and then in a moment, we're gonna ask you a question. We wanna know where everyone is coming from, and so start thinking, what is the one word that comes to mind when you think about allyship? Let's put it up now. One word that describes allyship for you. All right, let's see. I'm seeing support, togetherness, action, inclusion. I'm definitely seeing some common words: advocacy, listening, partner, friend. Support and inclusion certainly are big ones here. And I want to come back to this idea of inclusion as it really ties into one of the key things that JP Morgan has done with this Office of LGBTQ Plus Affairs. Particularly with you, Violetta, who leads the career and skills pillar for the office. I'd love to start with you and have you talk a little bit about allyship and why you think it's so important to the work that the office does.
Absolutely, thank you. And I'm hoping we can go to one of our slides because that will help clarify a little bit of the platform where allyship and our inclusive policies and practices sit. So within careers and skills, which is my pillar, we have other pillars as well, but within careers and skills, building an inclusive culture is one of our guiding principles. And we do this through inclusive policies and practices, through benefits. And we also do this with all of the programming that we do to drive culture of inclusion. Some of this programming is intersectionality, some of this programming is our allyship programming, and allyship obviously is very, very important. It's important that it is intentional, because that's where it matters the most. And you know, Isabel, we've been talking about this for a number of years.
For years now, yeah.
Yes, and allyship, the kind we did years ago through gamification, the games, it's not a game. It has to be intentional.
Absolutely, it has to be intentional. And so many of us, for example, rock our pride merchandise, our rainbow flags and pins, water bottles, et cetera. And all of that is really important. We need to be able to have that visibility of community, of sort of recognizing a safe space or a person. But putting on a rainbow pin or wearing some colorful attire does not constitute pure allyship, right? Allyship has to be intentional, it has to be an action, and so it really is the foundation to everything, as Violetta says. It's a key skill in life, in leadership, in management, and we all have a story that brings us to our allyship, right? That moves us into that intersection, to that intentionality, excuse me. And so, Sandra, I'd actually like to start with you. I know you have a personal reason that has sort of brought you into this allyship journey, not just your own, but actually in creating the program at JP Morgan Chase as well. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about that if you can.
Yeah, so where I come from, which is Hungary, by the way, talking about LGBTQ plus matter wasn't really a thing growing up. I never had a discussion with my family about it. We never learned about it in school. So in my head, I was kind of an ally, supportive of the community, because I didn't have a problem with people being gay. And even later on, when I started my corporate career, I wouldn't sign up for the Pride ERG. I wouldn't go to Pride parades because I didn't really understand why would I need to do that as a straight person. And then I saw a friend come up in the work cloud. Of course, someone close to me, my best friend, came out to me as gay. And so I wanted to, at that time, I wanted to make sure that he feels supported, he feels loved. So I asked him, what can I do? Is there anything I can do for you in this journey? And then he was the one who first explained to me why it is important for straight folks to show up to Pride Parade, to be visible with your support, to be vocal. He explained why intentional allyship matters. And yeah, I had to realize that allyship matters to me as long as it matters to the community. So I was determined to do better, to start doing and not just saying things, but I had no idea what to do. So when I joined JP Morgan, I joined the Pride BRG immediately, and not long after, I was told about an opening in the EMEA Ally Engagement co-chair role, so I just took it, decided to take it as an opportunity to start doing something. And since I know how difficult it was to get started and get involved with the community, as soon as I heard about the idea of an ally journey, I was hooked. And then not so much after that, I was introduced to Holly, who I think was at Out and Equal at the first time at that time, and was also very committed to create a way for allies to get involved.
I love that. It's really the intentionality of allyship. It's not just enough to say, as I think you said, oh, I'm cool with you. I don't really have a problem with LGBTQ plus folks. And that actually is also proven by the research. I mean, I think a lot of times when we start these conversations, we're thinking, okay, there's going to be some big scary thing. And there's certainly homophobia, biphobia, transphobia in our society. But a lot of what we face is sort of that inaction, right? Or that kind of, I'm cool with you, but just from the side. And so I really appreciate that you were really thinking about that action, that behavior that you have to take. So I want to pause before we keep talking and again take another moment to sort of do a pulse check in the room. So we don't just have questions for our panelists, we have questions for you as well. So take out your phones again. You probably all still had them in your hands, I see you. So I want to ask you the next question, which is, are you an ally? We want to understand who are the allies in the room and where you are in your journey, whether you're a new ally or you've been an ally for years, or maybe you're starting out. And let's take a moment to do that. And as folks are responding, I'm actually going to stop talking because, Holly, I know that you have some thoughts to share on this survey. So I want to turn it back over to you.
I do. So I see that we've got kind of a broad spectrum. I love that we have people in the room that are new allies. That's always so important to engage those new allies. And we've got quite a few of you that are been on your journey for a long time. And then I see a section. I'm a member of the community and not an ally. I'm going to be honest, we put that in there as a trick question.
We got you.
And you know, we realized at JP Morgan that was kind of a blind spot for us. I remember having conversations with Brad Baumel about the fact that we really hadn't thought this through and how important it is to have that intentional allyship within the community as well, especially at a time like this when some of the more vulnerable members of the community are under attack. It is so, so important to have that love surrounding us and the community taking care of us. So, you know, it's okay that you're in that spot, but I challenge you to kind of think your process on that and to take a new look at allyship and kind of focus in on what that means. Because, you know, Sandra just shared that, you know, she had a very different change and she course corrected along the way and learned that there was an importance to this, that there was a very specific need here. So, you know, it's okay to be in one space, but I challenge you, take a look at that and maybe reevaluate that a little bit.
I really appreciate that. And yes, it was a trick question because we have to be allies to each other. I always joke and say, like, I've yet to meet, and maybe you're in the room, so I will be corrected, but I've yet to meet the person who identifies as L, as G, as B, as T, as Q, and as plus, right? We tend to have a few, one or more of the letters, but not every single one. So, you know, for example, as a member of the community, I identify as bisexual or queer, but I'm also cisgender. And so I really have to recognize that, yes, even as a part of this community, I have some privilege, that I need to be able to act as an ally from that privilege. At the same time, as one of the bi-plus family, the non-monos, right, the non-mono sexuals, I can tell you all that we absolutely, you know who else has some privilege? Gay and lesbian folks, in addition to heterosexual folks, especially within our community. And so being an ally is important to recognize that, to be able to leverage it. I need allyship from gay and lesbian folks as well, right? And so Santi, you know, we've had some conversations around that. You've seen allyship from within, from outside of the community, especially from your, since you started at JP Morgan. And so as another member of the community as well, I know that it's important for you to see yourself as an ally too, that you see that this is a trick question. So what does that mean for you? I'd love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. So somebody made the choice of giving me a microphone. So I'm going to start talking about myself.
Yes.
When I did my first work experience, I was very young and still going through that wonderful journey of self-acceptance, self-discovery. I was very scared of coming out as gay in the workplace and how could that affect me negatively and my prospects of joining the firm full time. And so I hid. I tried to hide those parts of my life and my experience as a human being for as long as I could. And the sad thing is that I succeeded. So at the end of the internship, I got an offer. They wanted me to come back. But the feedback I got, the quote they gave me, which I remember to this day, was, "You did great, but no one here is going to remember you in a couple of years' time." Which sounds really harsh, but it's almost what I was trying to achieve. And it's feedback that was really, really impactful for me. Now I make a point of standing up, standing out, showing myself as authentically as I possibly can. And trying to make space for other people to do the same. If someone had asked me, thank you. If someone had asked me during that first internship if I had a partner instead of if I had a girlfriend, who knows where we would be today, right? So there's lots of simple things that we can do that really make a difference, particularly for those people who are not as comfortable, as secure in speaking up, speaking out, and being authentic. Yeah, that's my experience with allyship. So it's really important to support others because they might not be as comfortable as you are today.
And tell us about because this is not your first summit. You've been
it's
to
my second one.
It's
yeah.
your second one. So tell us, what was your first time like?
Oh, it was amazing. I keep trying to lobby Brad to do this every quarter or so because it's great. I loved it. It was my first time ever where I spent a week with just queer people, LGBTQ plus people, and it changed my life. Just being myself without worrying, holding hands with friends without looking behind to see if somebody's judging or making a strange comment. Building that, it was my first time seeing that fully inclusive environment. And we took that back to JP, and we try very hard to try and replicate that in the workplace so that other people experience a similar acceptance, a similar comfort in just being yourself without having to worry about those things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So Santi, speaking of first, second, third, hopefully for a lot of you, many summits, let's go ahead and pull up another Mentimeter here. And I want to know in the room what our demographics look like. Ooh, wow. First time summits coming up. I love it. Oh, we have a lot of new people in the room. But, that's a healthy number. Wow, 12 people, 5 or more. Okay, so
It's Brad and team.
So this is my 5th summit. I feel very fortunate to be in that lucky group of 5 or more times. I think it's amazing. Summit's a roller coaster. I know leading up to the week of Summit, I am so excited for so many reasons. I'm going to get to see, friends that I only see once a year, people not only from the 265 individuals that JP Morgan brings, but also so many friends I've made over the year from other countries and other companies, people that I get to come back and connect with every year. But there's a buzz, especially for you first timers. I just know there's a buzz, there's an energy, and it's that feeling of not only do you want to go change the world, but that you can. So I remember, attending my first summit back in 2018, and that was a catalyst for me. It changed everything for me. Because leading into Summit, man, I thought I was this amazing ally. Hey, I ran our local Pride chapter. That's pretty darn good, right? And I had a little wake-up call. I kind of figured out that maybe I had a little bit more to do than organize the Pride Parade and, get us into the Rockies game for the Pride Night. That maybe we should have some programming and there should be some things going on. So, I left Summit with this plan. And we were going to go change the world. Now, it's not quite what happened immediately, but we did get there over time. And I think a lot of things that for me changed. I think that if I hadn't come to Summit, when I finished my 2 years as co-chair of the local Pride chapter, that probably would have been it. But I had a friend that I met at Summit, and I was talking to her saying, yeah, my time with Pride is ending up, and Lindsay, if you're in the room, thank you, because I needed an ally who told me, no, you're going to go do something else. Got me to step onto our national board and work with that. And then when Brad created the office and was able to create the Ally Council, asking me to step onto that, it allowed me to continue this journey and to continue to make a difference. And then at that point, I'm introduced to this lovely human next to me. Sandra was a world away in Poland at the time. But, we both knew that we needed a way to engage allies. And so, connecting with her really made a difference for me. So the big thing that I know is that everyday employees show up and they say, I want to be an ally. I'm here, I'm supportive. But now what? Where's the resources? Where's, the things that we want to tell people to get on? So what we wanted to do was create a program where all the resources were in one place, where you could go and find out how to, what you needed to do, what you needed to do to be educated. And I think the other thing that we all figured out and wanted to create in our journey was that every journey is going to be very different. What your journey looks like is not what your peer's journey looks like. So we really wanted to find a place where people could chart their own course and go at the pace that really worked for them.
I love that. So let's get into it in a little more detail. I don't say this is like the meat of the session anymore, so I'll say the protein, which could be plant-based. So let's get into the protein part of the conversation, which is actually, shout out vegans and vegetarians, which is going to be really the crux of this program, right? You said, I want to walk through the evolution of this journey. You said you wanted to bring all of these resources and everything together into one spot. You wanted it to be simple and consistent, but also robust and detailed, so that sounds a little bit difficult. So Sandra, actually, can you walk us through more specifically how the program is laid out?
Yeah, so again, we just wanted to make sure that everyone had a clear, simple list of actionable steps that they can complete in order to become a better ally for the LGBTQ+ community. And I say complete, but of course this journey has a beginning, but no end really. It's just in the workplace context, there need to be the end of the list somewhere. So people can complete these steps at their own pace in a span of weeks, months, days, years, whatever works. But they will always be able to come back and just take a look at what else is there for me to do.
So that sounds nice. You know, learning is very important. It's all about learning. We're always going, and I'm always saying, we never stop learning, right? There's always going to be a journey to this evolution. But I know you built a program, and that program has websites, and at some point the website has to stop loading, right? You have to sort of close the materials. So how do you do that? How do you decide how to close this, and what are the actionable steps? I know folks are always asking, like, how am I an ally? What do I do? And you can't just kind of say, well, like, it is a lifelong journey, keep going, right? There have to be some details. So what did you all decide, and how did you get there?
Yeah, so we've been through a couple of iterations of how we wanted this journey to look like before we actually settled on what it ended up being. And flexibility was key as we navigated our stakeholders within the organization. So in the end, we settled on these 3 levels of allyship with 3 kind of focus areas or 3 dimensions. Before all of that, when someone decides to sign up for the program, we ask them to make a commitment, to commit to be an ally. We came up with the verbiage for the commitment itself, working with our D&I partners. This was already existing within the company. And it essentially talks about lifting the community up, striving to build an open and honest environment, and finding common ground with the people that we work with. It's in the workplace context. So once you do the commitment and sign up, then the page will take you to the first level and show you what are the first things that you can do.
I want to call out something you just said here, if I understand correctly. So you created those commitments, but already leveraging some existing material from your DEI subject matter experts internally, right? So this is a great thing to note for folks. You don't have to start from scratch. Leverage the resources and the things that have already been created in your organization. All right, so you've got the commitments. I've signed up. Now, what are the different categories? How do we get into it?
Yeah, so we thought that the best way to direct people's attention is by focusing on 3 main categories that you see on the screen: engage, educate, and empower. Mm-hmm. So within these each pillars, so within engage, this is about donating your time with the community. We are focusing on building the community. So you sign up to your Pride BRG, you sign up to events, you go to events, you bring a friend with you, you start mentoring, or you sign up for a mentoring program. Mm-hmm. So again, building community. Educate pillar, kind of self-explanatory. This is about attending trainings, educating yourself. And this is where we utilize already existing company trainings, but also books, movies, external various resources. And then when it comes to empower, so this is about advocacy. This in the beginning, as when you're a new ally, it might start with further education, but as one progresses in their journey, this is where we would expect people to step up and be their local chapter, regional leads in their ERGs, maybe step up as a board member of an external charity. So again, speaking up for the community and helping others in their ally journey.
And was it difficult to decide, so engage, educate, empower, was it difficult to decide these? How did, what specific resources? In other words, like, how did these 3 make the cut?
Yes and no. So many of these resources and steps, as I said with the commitment already, these were already available within the firm. We didn't need to reinvent the wheel, we just kind of had to group them in one. The one thing I would call out is, us JP Morgan being a global organization, we recognize that some of these actions or links or resources are available and can be used in some jurisdictions, while in others it might be legally impossible to do the same.
So that's a good point. So again, repurposing those existing materials, right, or leveraging those existing resources and expertise within your organization, having the flexibility to acknowledge that this is also a very important point, particularly around allyship, LGBTQ plus inclusion. It's not one size fits all. We have to sort of customize to the different landscapes, and with the firm being global, you do have to sort of adjust in those spaces. So completely understand that. So again, we've talked about the three objectives: engage, educate, empower. We've got those 3 levels. There's levels to the levels and the pillars. So Holly, walk us through a little bit more and show us how it works.
Yeah, so the first thing that I kind of alluded to earlier is that every journey is different. I kind of like to kind of compare it to some of those storybooks we read when we were kids that were create your own ending storybooks. Every journey is going to be different from the last one. We want to make sure we meet people where they're comfortable and where they're currently at as far as their level of understanding. So we always start with that new level. And for some people, this may be just a primer to make sure they haven't missed anything, whether it's putting their Zoom ID, their pronouns on Zoom, or putting an ally plaque on their desk, or just little tiny things that can be done. And for some people, it's going to be really quick and they're going to move right on to the everyday. But it's important to understand that for some people, they may stay in that new ally space for quite some time, or even possibly always. And it's very important to understand that that's okay. We want to meet people where they are and where they can support the community. But the everyday is where most people will land. They'll go into that level and they may stay there for years or even always. And that's great. That's our ally that's always showing up, that's actively involved in our chapters, that's actively involved in our community. And that is where we expect most people to land almost permanently. And then there's our super allies, and these are special. These are our front lines. They are out there advocating. They are constantly either right beside the community or in front of the community, leading the way. And that really is we really look at them as a extra special level for us.
So this is incredibly robust, and you've mentioned that there aren't necessarily specific requirements for each one, but how do you keep track of who's done what, who's on their journey? Like, can I just jump in and become a super ally right from the beginning? So how do you keep track of people's commitments and how they progress through these levels?
So, it's really important to understand that we, like most of your organizations, are a volunteer army. This is not our day job. This is something that we're doing. So we created a program that was mostly self-attestation, where individuals are going to go in and they're going to determine what they've done. A lot of our levels is like, hey, you can choose 5 of these 10 things to do, or something along those lines. But we went through most of that. And so as you progress through the journey, we have a lot of it automated because we do have a limited team. But our super allies is a little bit different. We do really dig into our super allies. We will reach out. There's a member, I don't know if Derek's out in the audience, but Derek's on our team, and he actually reaches out to their local chapters, talks to them, finds out about them, because we do want to determine that, yes, they are a super ally. But the flip side of it is you can have a super ally that is not connected to your chapter at all. They may be extremely involved in the community. They may have somehow gotten wind of this, gone through and done this, and we want to make sure that they are in fact connected to that local chapter and that we can utilize all their skills and their resources that they're working with.
I love them, connect them locally as well. So, it makes sense to have that additional focus on the super allies. So let's get a little bit more into the protein, so to speak. You mentioned that this is run by volunteers. So it's not necessarily somebody's day job. So we're not saying you have to quit your day job to get this done. You can incorporate this into your work as our colleagues here have done. So let's walk through a little bit how we got to here from those conversations you were having in Poland at Summit, here in the US, to having an actual functioning journey with the levels, with the pillars. So again, what were the steps that you took now that we've sort of started talking a little bit about what it looks like? What are the steps that you took to get here, to make this happen, to be able to launch it? And maybe Sandra, we'll start with you.
Yeah, so again, first of all, as I said, we went through a couple of iterations of the program before we arrived where we are now. We received feedback from our D&I colleagues that they are ready to support us, but we needed to come up with a framework that was generic enough for our other BRGs to utilize it as well. Many of them had attempts at ally programs before, but I think in our case with JP Morgan, it's just easier to get support when you do something that's scalable. And this is why the Engage, Educate, Empower was a winner, because it doesn't matter if you're an ally to the Hispanic or Latino community or women, these dimensions just resonate. And I think our Women on the Move BRG is actually going live with theirs this week, hopefully. Okay, so we decided on the format. Then we needed a team to build it. And we started by leveraging our existing Pride networks. Yeah, as we said, I was in Poland, Holly was in the US. It really doesn't matter who they are or where they are as long as they share your passion and vision. And I want to give a little shout out to our team, Kathy, Ram, and Derek here in the audience, and Kara, who's obviously cannot be with us today, but without them, again, we wouldn't be here. So thank you.
Excellent. So I love that. Find your co-conspirators. And again, I want to pause here because I think I want to tease out what you just said. So again, making do with what's around you, right? You don't have to create from scratch, especially as volunteers. So find your co-conspirators, find those people in your resource group who are passionate, who are engaged with you, but you also act as co-conspirators to others. I heard you say that this was the winning framework because it's not very complicated, because it can be leveraged by your organization's other resource groups, other inclusion efforts. So think about that as well, right? How can you proactively support intersectional allyship in your organization? You mentioned that it was maybe a little bit easier around funding for you all, right? So again, thinking strategically and thinking about the entire community. How are we creating a program that now you are leading, right? The LGBTQ organization is sort of the creator of this, but that everyone can benefit from. So I really just wanted to call that out again. Find your co-conspirators, but act as a co-conspirator yourself as well. So Sandra, so was it challenging then to get things moving once you got those co-conspirators, once you started sort of getting into the work?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Yeah, so one of the key things to get traction is to go find a sponsor. Find a senior executive who could support you. They don't have to be part of the day-to-day, but they will be needed to open the door to make those introductions within the company for you. And really nothing started moving for us until we found ours, or more like Holly found ours.
Yeah, so 2020 out and equals virtual, as we all know. And for our team, when we would finish our day to kind of keep us all connected through Summit, since it was virtual, we would have a debrief every evening. And at the time, we didn't have the Office of LGBTQ+ Affairs, but we did have an executive council, and we had a member of the executive council in every room. And it just so happens that Brad Bammel was the executive in my room. And he was kind of hanging out, just listening to us, kind of seeing what we were talking about. And then somebody talked about the ally session they'd been in, and Brad perked up and starts talking and saying, this is so important, and I was like, there's my guy. And I immediately, we were still debriefing, and I'm typing my email and connecting, and things really started to move after that. That was where we connected. So you can find in the places you're not looking for someone. You just listen and watch for the cues and find that person who can help you out.
So sponsor, what else?
Yeah, so you will need to build a tech team. And well, this is our experience, but we would advise to make it 2 to 3 times larger as you think it needs to be. Maybe you're a techie, we're not. So a lot of people move around, day jobs get busy. It's not that easy to step in for the tech support as it is for, let's say, admin work. So build one and make it big. Which leads us to research. So involve those stakeholders that your senior executive support can get you in front of, be it HR, D&I, or legal department. Listen to their feedback and apply it. And remember I said that flexibility was key, and this is where it comes to play. Many times you will have to bend your program for one of these departments, and then it will look like a huge loss at first, but actually it will become a big gain in the end. And for us, this one thing was gamification. So we were initially very determined to make it as part of our program, but that was a hard no for D&I. And then we realized that, yes, we don't actually want people to be signing up to this program just to compete for some level or badge. We want them to sign up to be true allies to the LGBTQ+ community. And then last but not least, include and create a robust training program. Once again, work with your D&I colleagues, utilize everything that's already available and just bring them into one place. Reach out to other communities within the LGBTQ+ space. And what I mean here, at JP, we have a Bi+ Council, we have a Gender Expansive Council. Bring everyone into the fold and help them build something through your allyship program that they can use to grow their own materials.
I love that. So again, if you'll allow me to recap, because I love a recap, it's part of the learning, right? So we're doing find your co-conspirators, find a sponsor. I think find your Brad, certainly. And I think one of the key pieces here is also find your Brad and reach out to them in the moment, right? You didn't wait for it to be a month after summit, 2 months, 2 years later. Oh, we met, remember when we met 6 months ago? You saw that excitement and you grabbed it then. So do that, right? If you are here with executives from your organization who might be potential sponsors, reach out to them. Talk to them tonight at Gala about it. Send an email tomorrow when you're on your plane. Identify potential folks from other organizations that might be able to help you find that person within your organization, right? But network. I'm also hearing build out that large tech team and get a little extra about it, right? Maybe have some redundancy in there. Certainly do the research and absolutely including these robust training programs. It cannot be about gamification. I'm very competitive, so I definitely would have been like rushing through those things, and it would have been just so I can get a special badge, a gold star, not necessarily that learning. So I really appreciate that. So you've given us, what is that? I got to count. 5 ways on how to build the Ally program, what to do. I'm sure you learned some lessons on what not to do, right? What are some of the things that maybe we should skip or avoid? So would love to hear from you, Holly, on what those might be.
Yeah, so we launched our program right after Out and Equal last year. Where we started to launch it. It's taken us about 9 to 10 months to roll out, and we just a couple months ago got fully rolled out across the globe. And one of the things that we know is that we started in the US because that's where we had built an extensive group of allies across all of our chapters, and we utilized them as our boots on the ground. But then we realized as we were going to go through the different regions across our globe that maybe we didn't have as robust of an ally network there. And so we took a lot of our learnings from the initial rollout, went through, utilized our marketing materials. As we rolled across the globe, we took advantage of Brad again. We used his schedule. We worked with our communications team. Every single speech or meeting that Brad was in, we made sure allyship was a part of that conversation, and that he was, out there selling our story, telling people about it. As we rolled across the globe with him, we rolled out the global program. During that 9-month process, there was a lot of things that we learned. Zante, if you want to go to that next screen. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is do not launch without a beta program. Okay. So for our Texas people in the room, thank you, thank you, thank you. Our program would not be what it is today without you. We took our most engaged group of individuals and we had them test everything. We had them click on everything. At one point, I literally said, please go try and break it. We really went through there. But the flip side of that is once you've done a beta program and you've found all these, you've kind of got it ready to go, don't wait until you have everything perfect. Because you'll never launch if you wait till it's perfect. I think it's really important to, find your spot, go ahead. Because things are going to happen along the way. There's a lot of things that we wanted to do. We didn't have the capabilities. We didn't have the right program. We've got a program that's going to come online for our firm in 2024 that's probably going to be perfect to host this with. There's no way we're waiting till 2024. So we don't have everything we want, but it's great. And that leads into don't get hung up on what you cannot do. You're going to find things that you just cannot do in your company. That's okay. You'll find ways around it. But don't let that stop you from building something that can help and support so many people. I think that's crucial. Also, don't be afraid to be honest with yourself and admit failures. We had an epic failure. As you all know, when you do something like this, you need to produce some results. Okay? Because how do you keep getting funding to do all of this? You've got to show what's the impact to the firm, what's the value to this. And we have what are called Go links at our firm, and we do have Go links to go to the different level, even though we want everybody to start at the beginning and work their way through. Well, we had those Go links so that our Leaders could see it and know what they were rolling out, and we put them on a PowerPoint, and they got out to everyone. And then suddenly, we had people deciding, oh, I'm a super ally, or I'm an everyday ally, and they were going right to that. Well, hey, I get that that's where you're at, but there's some really crucial things in the new ally. Plus, we were not capturing the data, so we were under-reporting on our KPIs. So that's, that's something that, we got. And you know what, so we went back, we fixed it, we got it, and man, those goalies are like in a vault now. And then the biggest thing I'll say is don't let what you don't know personally get in your way. That's crucial. So I'm 1 year shy of being a baby boomer, which means technology is not always my friend in a big way. Our project manager, Ram, for our tech team is sitting out there, and sometimes he's just like, oh God, what do you want? I don't understand what you're talking about. But he does a phenomenal job of translating it to our team. So I knew that tech was not going to be my thing. We needed somebody else to do that. I could have a vision. Sandra and I could have all sorts of things going on, but I was not going to be the person who was going to build that tech. And that's okay. You don't have to know everything to lead an amazing team and turn out an amazing product.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just give a round of applause at this part. I told you there would be protein. That's 5 things to do, 5 things not to do. And I want to, include Violetta and Santi in this conversation as well, particularly around learning, right? So this is part of the program launch, and one of the key parts in engaging allies in this program, now that we've seen sort of how it got created, is through education. So Violetta, you've talked about allyship being a key piece, right, to a culture of inclusion. So I'd love to talk about how the Office of LGBTQ+ Affairs supports it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a strategy, right? It's not one program. It's not just allyship. It's not just training. Mm-hmm. There's a whole strategy around careers and skills and building a culture of inclusion. There's intersectionality that is part of it. Maybe some of you heard about our navigator circles. So there's different programmatic elements and very intentional building out of this culture of inclusion that takes place out of the office. And it's not, again, in the older days, we kind of had somebody in DEI that used to do some of this work. Nowadays, it's done out of this platform that we have, out of the Office of LGBTQ+ Inclusion that Brad leads. And we do this with our communities of practice. So here on the stage, we have our Ally Council, we have our training representative, we have our other councils. Everyone contributes to this agenda, and everyone contributes, I think, you mentioned it with training, right? So we have various trainings that are part of this, of all of this magic that takes place. And so with that, in terms of our training, one of the cornerstones of our training is, of course, building bridges. And the program has been there from before my time. But Santi took that and built it out fantastically. And we don't do this just internally with our communities of practice, and we don't do it just intersectionally with our other centers of excellence across diversity dimensions. We also do it with partners like Out and Equal. Yeah. So it's a curve. You're always on this journey within the program, but outside of the program, the bigger picture, it's all part of this journey that we're all on. And with you, Isabel, if you recall, during our COVID years, we introduced the concept of intersectionality because that is so important as well. And going back to training, that was also one of our trainings.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I want to talk a little bit more about the learning program, but before we get into some of the details, and Santi, I know you have some of that background, I want to learn a little bit more from folks in the audience. So we have one more mentee question for you on the next slide here. Same code from earlier, mentee.com 91512226. Love to know, does your organization also provide LGBTQ+ allyship training or learning programs? All right, so I'm seeing about 17 of you, 18 of you are saying yes. About equal numbers are saying yes, we have robust programs. Some programs here in the yellow that need some work. And actually, majority of folks do not yet have LGBTQ plus training programs. So a little piece, if I can, some self-promotion here. One of the things that Violetta is mentioning in building out these programs, leverage your internal expertise, leverage your communities of practice, leverage your partnerships as well. All of you are partner organizations of Out and Equal, right? We are here more than happy to support you in building your learning programs as well, offering resources both from our own education, but also resources for you all to lead as well. So again, look for those co-conspirators, and your partners are some of those co-conspirators. So thank you all for that. And now, Santi, I do want to bring you in, and it looks like we have, again, that decent mix. There's a lot of folks here in the blue. So I'm going to say blue folks. Let's stand up after this session and support, right, those folks who are in the yellow and pink teams on the slide. Right, 51 are here. I know obviously there's a lot of folks from JPMC in the room as well, certainly. But so in addition to JPMC robust programs, there are also others. So again, find community here, talk to each other, bring these slide decks back, reach out to folks and talk about how they built these programs. I don't know if you're seeing the theme here. A lot of this is happening from conversations when folks connect at organizations like this. So let's get into, again, some of the protein of how it works, particularly at JPMC. Santi, I know that you co-lead these efforts. Love to hear a little bit more from you now.
Yeah, so I'll move on to the next slide. I think there's a lot of parallels between the Ally training program and the Ally journey, in that it's fully run by volunteers. And that's important to us because the people delivering this training is people that have lived experience as part of the community, as active allies, as family members of people of the community, and they're able to bring those stories, those personal stories that make the content so much more meaningful and come alive. Just some numbers for you. So this is fully run by volunteers, and we're on track to train 10,000 people this year.
Wow. 10,000?
10,000, yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. So I want to talk about some of the things that we've learned that allow us to scale to those numbers at the company. And what you see on the slide is the different trainings that we run in the firm. The most important thing, I think, is to try and build that unified strategy, that one team with one mission that can work together to achieve those scales. You're going to find a lot of people with a lot of energy, a lot of ideas, but you want to make sure that you bring people together so you're not duplicating efforts and going your own way. We had one training originally, which Violetta mentioned, which was building bridges, and then people started branching out to these specialized areas like Trans 101, Non-Binary 101. And we're trying to bring everybody together, again, to have that one mission, that one experience across all of our trainings. So what we have now, for example, is there's one logistics team, and the logistics team sets up all of the sessions, which means that the facilitators can just show up, deliver their training, make a difference, and move on. They don't have to worry about any of the administration, logistics, etc. It's all handled by one team in the background. It's also important trying to make sure that you know what you're trying to achieve. Going back to what Holly was saying about KPIs, this can have a massive impact in your organization. So how are you measuring that success? How are you collecting feedback from your attendees? How are you improving your programs based on that feedback? It's very important that you measure the impact you're having because it will be significant. And it'll allow you to scale even further in the future if you can prove just that importance.
Absolutely. So I'm hearing a unified strategy, right? You have this content, you have subject matter experts and folks who have lived experience in the communities leading this. You're not letting everybody sort of go off on their own competing. It's one logistics group. And that also takes a lot of pressure off the facilitators, which I can say is very appreciated when you can just kind of show up. So really hear that. I'm also hearing you again focusing on measurement, right? And that is key, especially as you are launching these programs. A lot of times folks think of allyship as kind of like just feelings. It's just about being nice, right? It's just about vibes. And I think what you are really drawing out here is having those KPIs, having those metrics so that you can measure somebody's journey from new ally to super ally, but also so you can show the impact of the program. So what are some of the key things that you've learned as you continue to build this up?
Yeah, so for example, Building Bridges, which is our introductory course to LGBTQ+ inclusion and allyship in the workplace. These sessions are 1 hour long. They're aimed towards new allies, although everybody's welcome to join and attend and join the conversation. People sign up, they get a calendar invite, and they just turn up. They've got an hour, and after the session, they receive an automated email with the materials that we discussed, all of the resources, all of those calls to action, all in one place. Again, trying to make it simple, make that experience as streamlined as possible to bring people in. Something that we heard last year, I heard at least last year at Tauta Equal for the first time, was the difference between calling in versus calling out. We really, really believe in calling people in. So we work very hard to build an open, a safe space where people can come with those questions, with those mistakes, and have that conversation in an honest, genuine way without fear of retribution. We find that a lot of people want to be an ally, but they're so worried about saying the wrong thing that they'd rather just not say anything. We want to break those barriers and make sure they can come in, engage, and learn about why it is so important to be a voice, even if we all make mistakes, to be that voice that helps move the needle forward, move everything forward.
And I know, Sandra, you're a facilitator as well. What are some of the themes that pop up in these conversations?
Yeah, so before that, let me just say that I think there's a few of us in the room who are facilitators.
Actually, raise your hand if you're a facilitator for this group. Excellent.
Yeah, so
Thank you all.
people take real pride in it. You have to literally race for the sign-up sheet to be able to facilitate the session because it's just really rewarding. And then the things that we talk about in the 1 hour is what is inclusion and why does it matter in the workplace specifically. We underline this with some statistics around talent retention and so on. Then we talk about the common challenges faced by the community, both outside and at the workplace, and think coming out, misgendering, pronouns. And then we segue into explaining what pronouns are, why they are important, and we encourage everyone to display theirs on Zoom or on emails, wherever possible. And after that, we do a little breakout exercise where we ask everyone to talk about their weekends with a small group, but without using any gendered words or pronouns, which is, I think, is very popular because it very clearly demonstrates how difficult it is to be always thinking of what you will be saying, to be always masking yourself, how exhausting that is. And then after that, we explain the gender-breath person. I don't know if people are familiar with it, but it explains the difference between gender identity, expression, sexual and romantic orientation, and biological sex. And again, this is a very popular section because it just makes the difference between these definitions so clear. And then we do a couple of workplace scenarios. For example, an interview where you walk into the room and there's someone who on paper has a male name but is female presenting, and then we ask people for their opinion how they would handle such a scenario. And then before we close, we show some statistics, the latest state of LGBTQ+ rights around the world. We usually focus in on the location where the group is located. And then, of course, there are lots of links, takeaways, calls to action at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd like to point out, that's just building bridges. As you see on the screen, we've got so many specialized scenarios, whether it be Trans 101, Trans 102. And it's very important to us that somebody who's teaching in those specialized scenarios, that they have lived experience. So we always make sure at least one facilitator in those lived experience sessions is there to make sure that we can give a true and honest view of it.
And so you're talking about having the experience with the live facilitators, a lot of robust training. I mean, this is its own thing in a way, but how do you, and you're talking about safe spaces as well, right? So I'd love to get a little bit more into how do you actually build those safe spaces in those conversations? Santi?
Yes, we're very intentional about how we try and approach that challenge. So we limit the number of people per session. Our maximum is 100, but it's usually much smaller. We find the smaller the group, the easier it is to engage in conversation and not just hide away in a big crowd. And we call out right at the beginning that the session will be interactive, setting up those expectations. And the people facilitating are volunteers as well, not experts. That helps if somebody asks you a particularly challenging question later on. But it also sets the scene that we're all at the same level playing field having a conversation. We do also things like calling out that it won't be recorded. We won't retaliate against any questions, any comments, as long as they're not purposefully hurtful or negative, obviously. And that we want to have a genuine conversation, and people respond very positively. Things like humor also help a lot. I try to do that a lot, as you probably tell. it helps.
I think, yeah, that's a good thing to have. I mean, I like to think that I am also incredibly hysterical during our learning sessions. And so I'd love to know, like, what are some of the key things that you've learned by building up the program, again, across all of these different types of trainings?
Yep. I think you have to build a program and a team that scales. We found out when we launched the program, similarly to the Ally journey, that people were super excited to engage, join the conversation, attend the training. And the biggest bottleneck to delivering the training was us. We couldn't cope with the number of emails, the number of requests of people wanting to sign up and get involved. So having that team that will help you manage those challenges is very useful. So we've got people focusing on the calendar aspect, setting sessions, people replying to those emails. And having a team that can help across those areas makes it easier, and it doesn't mean that one single person is that point of failure that the whole program relies on. We run regular touch points with everybody to make sure they're all involved, but we have that one team that helps worry about those logistics things so that the people facilitating just focus on that meaningful conversation with the individuals. They don't have to worry about anything else.
So that team manages the logistics, the calendaring, I'm assuming the feedback and reporting. And what is some of the feedback that you all have received?
So the feedback is very positive. We ask very specific questions on our feedback, things like, how much do you feel like you learned about sexual orientation, about gender identity? We try and break it down as much as possible and feed that back to the materials. We review it on a regular basis. It's also helpful for our facilitators. So if we receive feedback about a specific individual, we always make sure to take that back because it shows their leadership, their active involvement, and something they can take back to their team. And we also use it as a control mechanism as well. So it's a volunteer program. So we want to make sure that we have good quality across all of our sessions. So we use it as well to train our own trainers on the latest trends, the latest questions that we're seeing across every session.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the training sessions, the focus on education, obviously key components of the Ally program and of the Ally journey, right? They're two different things. We've discussed the why and how of the Ally journeys. So Violetta, how do you bring it full circle to make this a program that is, again, supported by the firm as well?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we mentioned it a few times. Thank you all for this. It's all about the KPIs at the end of the day, right? So the KPIs and what we track and measure, our reporting, it is done out of each one of these programs, right? Allyship has their KPIs. Each of the training programs has their KPIs. And then, of course, that all feeds into the Office of LGBTQ+ inclusion KPIs. So KPIs around engagement, around our training, around our self-ID. That's what brings it kind of full circle to capture the value, to see the value, to capture the return on investment.
So we have to capture that value, we have to measure. Before we wrap, and we do have plenty of time for Q&A, which was by design, so really thrilled about that we kept our time here so that we can have some questions from the audience, and I'm gonna ask the AV team to support that with the microphones. I just want to recap again for folks, right? If we can go and think through this again, the co-conspirators, do your research, find your Brad, right? Find your sponsor who's going to walk. He's looking in the front like, please stop saying that. Find your person who's going to support this work. Measure, measure, measure. And leverage your resources as well. I think if I can say, I think one of the pleasures here has been working with you all, right? Seeing that this team is open to engagement, to learning, to leveraging your partnership Without an Equal, as well as other organizations, right? Leveraging the expertise within the community to build these programs. And that goes for folks in the audience, in this room, as well as those of us who are joining us via the ePass. The outandequal.org website is an excellent resource. You know, I got to do it. I got to tell you about the website. Go to our website, download our materials. We have a lot of resources to support you. If you want to see more of what the JP Morgan Chase team and other partner organizations have done, make sure that you talk to your point of contact and get access to our global hub, because that is also where you'll see a lot of the details, a lot of the case studies and decks for these materials, and where you can reach out to subject matter experts like the folks that we have on the stage as well. So I'd like to thank all of you for joining, as well as the facilitators and participants of this program who are in the room. thank you for building this kind of content, for supporting your colleagues, for being great partners. For being true allies as well. And so now we have some time for questions. I'm gonna, again, keep it 100. There is a lot of glare in my glasses, so
It is bright.
I have no idea where those questions, I think I see some people. Hopefully there's a question. Yes.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Eric Orrington. My pronouns are he and him. I'm here with the group from Medtronic.
Hey, Medtronic.
Medtronic people. So I appreciate your time to be here today. What I heard you say was that there was a very quick no around gamification. And it's interesting. I wondered if you could talk more about the rationale behind that, because at our work we have things like a daily step challenge. You get 10 people together and you compete against other teams for like how many steps you can take, and that's okay. But gamification here was not. So you can talk more about that. I also heard you talk about the uplink. So I was a little confused about uplink. You mentioned those were the links that got out to other people. I'm in a confused look. But like, just help me understand like gamification, how you would like talk about going from one level to the next with your employees, and then also with the KPIs too.
So I'll take the gamification because I was the one who was dead set on that. I wanted gamification. I thought it was such a cool thing. And we went to DEI, and it was such a hard no. I mean, like, it wasn't even, let's talk about it. It was like, nope, not doing that. And so, you know, I pushed back a little bit. And the reality is that we want allies to show up because they are supportive of the community, not to get a badge. I don't want this to be a line item on someone's resume. I don't want it to be a line that they can submit for their review at the end of the year. Allyship is about showing up and supporting the community. The problem we had was that they didn't know what to do, so we made that available to them. But I think the gamification piece, once our eyes were opened, we got on board really quick to thinking that, hey, we had the wrong idea.
And I think Dee and I just didn't feel that that was inclusive enough.
Yeah, that was another piece, is they really wanted that inclusivity, and they just felt like you were shutting people out. You were saying one person was a better ally than another one. That's one of the reasons we use the verbiage of new, everyday, and super. We didn't want to say, hey, you're an okay ally, you're a great ally type of thing.
You're a so-so ally.
Yeah, well,
I guess
we
we'll take you.
really wanted to avoid that, so it took a long time to settle on the verbiage that we used.
Was there another part about
Yeah,
KPIs?
Yeah, so the gamification part makes sense. Thank you for that. Is it still possible for you to go from one, like from the new ally to the everyday? Is that visible or not to your employees?
To individual employees, yes, but not not on the broad spectrum. We are working on one of the pieces that we said, hey, don't wait till you have everything you need to launch. One of the pieces that we will get in the coming year most likely is a phone book badge, but it will just say ally. It will not have a level on it.
Different level, okay. And my question about the KPI portion was, in my mind, the difference between gamification and KPI is just maybe if it's going to be public or private. So you still have these KPIs, you're probably tracking things like attendance and engagement. How is how you use your KPIs? Is it as simple as public versus private KPIs versus the gamification?
So, sorry, I didn't quite hear the question, but the KPIs are basically around all of these programs, engagement KPIs.
Engagement.
So allyship, right, is more around how many allies did we sign up, right? That's one KPI. But then when we go to training, it's how many employees did we engage through this training. So it's an employee engagement KPI. And what we are hoping to see over time, and we are seeing, is okay, when we are doing all of this work, what happens to our self-ID? And when we see that go up, what happens to my promotion and retention metrics, right? So now, it's a more inclusive culture. Are people getting equitable promotions within our diversity dimensions because of this more inclusive culture? Are we seeing higher retention metrics because of this? Because now people can be the true best version of themselves, so they want to stay here. So the KPIs are multiple and interconnected.
And then to specifically ask the question, nobody gets to see the KPIs, but is this on?
Yes.
Nobody gets to see the KPIs but me and my management structure. So, yeah, I mean, internal versus external. This is part of how I sell, how we're improving the firm and the global community, is creating these KPIs that will measure our progress over time. And this is how I get funding, because I have my own discretionary funding. And this is how I bring others along, other COEs, other underrepresented groups. So they're very valuable, but they're very private.
Thank you for those questions. Thank you, Brad. I know you had a question as well over here.
Hello, Andrew Gorgani from Allstate. Use he/him pronouns. So my question was, you mentioned the amount of people and work that goes into the coordination of doing this important work. I had a question. Did you utilize any, or have you utilized any asynchronous learning to supplement that kind of bottleneck in the demand that you get for these kinds of programs, just to kind of be able to provide more with less bodies to provide?
Yeah,
What kind of
absolutely.
program? Sorry.
Asynchronous, so like
Got it.
digital only. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got a vast library of trainings online as well that people can take on their own time, including small trainings that they can do online that refresh some of the materials that we discussed during, for example, building bridges. So people can take it away in their own time and do interactive refreshers. So yes, absolutely. The value of the specific training sessions we're discussing today is that there's those 1 hour sessions with individuals that have lived experience and that can describe it almost one-on-one, why these things matter so much and why it makes such a difference. So there's a vast library of online materials, but the numbers and the trainings we're discussing today are specifically those live sessions, either in person or virtually through Zoom.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
When Santi says there's a vast library, just so that, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of training courses. We brought it all together into a site that's Go DEI Learning. So anything DEI is on one website, categorized, so yeah.
Sorry, it's slightly just because I'm really excited to hear what you all are working on, because just launched this with our ERG at Pride. Similar kind of structure to it, but fully asynchronous as like a compendium, like an in-demand content.
Great. And I want to go to the question back here, but I want to acknowledge a quick question virtually. I'm scrolling through the virtual questions as best I can. I see a lot of those were on KPIs and on that type of learning, the schedule, so I appreciate that. Is ally training mandatory or is it volunteer-based?
It's a good question. So ally training is not mandatory yet. We're working on that. But what we do is we engage with leaders and we show the value to leaders of the training, and those leaders will actively engage, encourage their teams to bring people in. So we try and find ways of bringing that engagement in, and we do so actively. One other thing that I wanted to mention, I got ahead of myself, I was excited and I didn't mention earlier. We've started piloting building bridges externally. So if any of you want to see the slides that you can take away ideas, we're happy to show you at the end of the session as well.
And I think one more thing is that some of the teams include this in their onboarding package now. Mm-hmm. So still not mandatory, but because it's there for new joiners to do, I think a lot of people go through the whole list because they're new, right?
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah.
Everybody joining some areas of our business now have it as default as part of their onboarding process, which is really exciting for us because it's now embedded in that culture.
Yes.
It's part of the expectations of any employee to be aware of some of those challenges, some of that basic knowledge that we were discussing earlier. Yeah.
Yes.
And that is a requirement on the Human Rights Campaign Index for all of you that are doing the HRC index. It's a good formula to build it in.
I like that. That's a good point. Thank you all. Yes.
Hi, my name is Joey. I'm with General Motors. Pronouns are he, him. I think you all have a really, really great program, so thank you for sharing what you did today. It took away a lot of really great learnings. But one follow-up question I had was, you talked about teams that you have helped facilitate the actual scheduling of the sessions, and that way the presenters just can show up and they don't have to worry about that. We have something kind of similar at GM, but it's very smaller scale, and we want to expand it more. And that's been one of the biggest struggles, is kind of how you manage, because we're all volunteers too, so, and we don't have an office of LGBTQ plus affairs. Who manages that exactly? Is it people who are part of the Allyship Council, or how exactly does that part get managed?
Yes, well, I'll take that one as well. It's a really good question, thank you. So we have a team of people that really want to engage, but don't necessarily want to be the front-facing person delivering the training. So they're more comfortable with roles behind the scenes, and we bring them in and find those right fits for them. So some people have really good email management skills, some people have really good administration of calendar skills, and we try and fit people into those different roles. We run our team following the Agile Scrum model. So what we do is we have sprints and we have weekly stand-ups. So we have 10, 15-minute catch-ups with everybody in the team to make sure that they're still engaged, involved, and we make sure that there's not one single person assigned to one role. Again, it's a volunteer job, so we want to make sure that you have those other team members to fall back on if your day job becomes busier. So we try and find redundancy in the teams in that other people can help out when your day job gets busier, and we try and engage the team on a regular basis to make sure that everyone's involved, engaged, and doesn't get distracted, because again, it's a volunteer job, so we want to make sure that people are stay online with us.
I have one other thing. When we were going through organizational design, whether you have an office of LGBTQ plus affairs or not, because a lot of what I do is through volunteers. So because there's so much to do, so Holly and Sandra sit on my extended leadership team, but so do Richard and Santi. So I created a separate training, just like I have an ally council. So as you think about your BRGs, do you have all the right organizations set up within them to do what you want to do? So you might also want to set up an ally council. You might also want to set up a training council and link it to Pride, because it's very linked to the BRG. But like, put people in leadership roles that could build teams under them to do the work you want to do.
Thank you for your question. I'll start identifying the next question in the room.
Right
And I
there.
do have, and right before we get to your question, I do have one. I want to, mix in our questions that are coming from our Eve room, our virtual room. And since we've been talking about this being a volunteer role, maybe this is a question for you all. Maybe, Brad, this is a question for you. Our EPAS attendees are asking, how are volunteers recognized for their contributions? Is it as part of their performance reviews, or are there other ways that volunteers are recognized?
By being here.
By being
Someone
here.
had to pay for this, right?
That's
Yeah, well, that's-
absolutely by being here.
Yeah, I brought 260 folks with me. So it's not where I want it to be yet, because I want there to be like physical dollars and promotion assigned to the work people do and the people agenda. We're not totally there yet, and it's up to manager discretion, but we recognize people in many ways. All BRG leaders and people on my extended leadership team and people on their extended leadership teams get thank you notes, both as being a leader in DE&I that goes to their managers, and from me to their managers and their managers' managers and their managers' managers, speaking about what they have done as part of the agenda and what it's meant to the company, as a way for me to try, and again, you don't have a Brad, so, but as a way for me to reach out to some very senior people in the organization and tell them how their people are moving the dime. So I'm hopeful that that then factors into how their performance reviews go and compensation goes, but leverage your part. The one note that goes out to them and their manager is from our DEI team, not from me. The personalization comes from me.
If I can just add on the training side, we do something similar as well. So we have some facilitators that are super committed. We have someone that's done 33 sessions this year.
Wow.
33 hours of their time that they've dedicated to this. So what we do is whenever we get outstanding feedback, or on a regular basis when we run our metrics, we'll send out emails to those individuals and their managers as well, to make sure that even if those people are not necessarily bringing it up, we're showing our appreciation and highlighting those efforts as well. Because it's a way of showing leadership and commitment to the firm as a whole, right? So wherever we can, we try and promote those efforts as well. And it's a good way of keeping your volunteers engaged as well, because they're rewarded for their efforts, which are making a meaningful difference for the firm.
I'll just add one more thing because I spend a lot of time thinking about talent development. This is the extension, right? This is a platform for success. This is the next level of leadership that maybe our VPs or our AVPs would not have out of their day job, but layered with this, it's now at a different level. And success begets success, right? Because it's a platform, because it's a conversation, because we are on stage, because we are presenting to the OC level folks at our company. All of that, there's an element of a self-fulfilling prophecy that I'm also trying to institutionalize with Brad and take it to the next level where it really counts, right, into the comp and the promotion and all of that.
Hi, I'm Ash, JP Morgan, super ally, left my cape at home. I would just like to ask a question where we have, there's a great, when we look at sort of what we're doing in our chapter in London, especially when allies join, the engagement at the beginning is brilliant. But there are legacy allies where we have had them in there, but they really have kind of just fallen off. And one of the questions I have is, the program's amazing, you've talked about engagement, but do you have any other tips from what you've covered here for re-engagement for those who were once active but have kind of fallen off?
That's on next steps right now. Is we just finished rolling out July, getting it rolled out globally. So now we can refocus back, and that's on our next steps of literally to the point where we want to make sure it's automated. Like if somebody hasn't logged in a certain amount of time, if they haven't done that. And we also are looking at, for example, our Texas people who are the very first people to get their hands on it in beta test. We're looking at having them go back through it because when we gave it to them, it didn't look anything like it does now. So we will continue to refresh and to do that, but we've really started trying to drill down into the stats, and Santi does an amazing job of helping us figure out stats on things. But figuring out who hasn't been engaged in a while, where, hey, somebody stalled on a level or something like that. And to keep in mind, though, when I say stalled on a level is maybe they're not engaged anymore, but the reality is that it's okay to stay in that level. I want to keep that up there. But yes, we do, that's next steps.
And there is one.
Sorry.
Brad, do you want to go down?
No, I was going to give Holly and Sandra some homework. So maybe we ought to think too about the Pride membership and how do we want to bring them back in? Because we've got tens of thousands of allies in that. Because maybe they didn't do the ally journey yet, so they're not in your list. But maybe they're a member of Pride, and it's the same people that Ash doesn't have connectivity with anymore. So let's think about how we re-engage the masses, our 40,000, whatever it is, people, and bring them to the fold.
And the thing is even us, we talk all the time. We're constantly in communication with each other. I mean, if I can tell you the number of times a week we're on Zoom with each other, it doesn't matter that we're across the pond from each other. But Santi and I were talking this week of how do we engage more people in the journey through building bridges, and how we're constantly evolving that. It's never ending. So that's the one thing to keep in mind is once you've built it, you've got to constantly keep improving it and adding in, and take the feedback that you get. Because feedback is your best gift. So many times we've added something in just because somebody sent us a link and said, hey, how come this isn't in the journey? And my response is, well, because we missed it and it should be, and we're fixing it now. And I'll send them a screenshot showing them that something's been, because we want to keep that feedback coming.
Mm-hmm. And one other thing I would add just very quickly to wrap it up on this topic is one thing the team hasn't mentioned, and they do exceptionally well, there's programming above the programming, right? So we have, with Isabel Porras, this team just did a session on intersectionality and allyship. So it's delivering programming that keeps our allies engaged throughout the year. And I know you have an even bigger event, Round the Sun event, right? So all of these are engagement strategies to keep our allies engaged with the agenda year-round.
Yeah, we run an ally summit where our allies run the programs and build the material, and we take their feedback. We've been doing it just in the US for the last 2 years, and next year we're going to follow the sun and run a 24-hour summit that will go throughout the globe and be engaged. And we're going to record a set number of sessions in each time zone so that they can be replayed by everybody.
Awesome.
Hi. I'm
Applaud that 24-hour summit.
Actually, my question is a nice piggyback off of what you just said. But my name is Kim C., and I'm with Advantage Solutions. We're a global end-to-end business provider for retailers and for CPGs, consumer packaged goods companies. And so, first of all, what you shared with us was just fantastic today. So thank you very much. I took away a lot. The question I have is, you mentioned global, and I wanted just to kind of circle back on that, because one of the things in our company, we do look at any time we're going to launch something is how well does it scale. It needs to scale globally, and then it starts to get very complicated, as you can imagine, between languages and just some nuances within different countries. And I was just curious to see, as you roll this out to other countries, is it managed within that specific country? Is it managed centrally? How do you work through like the languages and just all the different levels of, every country's a little different in terms of, what they allow, what they don't allow. I'm very curious to see how you kind of pull all that together.
Yeah, so we didn't really go country by country, more like region. North America was first because they have a very established ally group who was able to kind of push it down in their chapters. And then we moved on to EMEA, where there was no country by country or chapter by chapter launch, but it was just one rollout email because it's just a smaller area that's being covered. And then APAC was actually the only thing that I think was different, where we had an India rollout, because simply we try to do the rollout events or the emails in a way that resonates most with that country. So for India, it needed to be an in-person event. For the rest of APAC, again, we utilized where Brett was around and traveling. And as we continue to work on the content, we try to make sure that, yes, we do with each of the regions separately. We get relevant links, relevant information. I think at some point we'll get to translating things as well. Same as Building Bridges is already, I think, in Spanish and is planning to be in more languages. So yeah, just keeping in mind too that how it resonates best when it comes to introducing the program, and then having the team in each region you can work with to get relevant content.
If I can just add on the training, sorry, Holly. What we do for the training, in case that helps, is we centrally manage the overall content for each one of the trainings, but for each language that we deliver it in, we have one or multiple people who are our owners for the language. So whenever we make a significant version change, we'll engage those people, make sure that each version gets updated, approved, and then they all come live at the same time. That's some of the feedback that we got, which was that the content is great, but it would be more meaningful if delivered in the local language with the local terminology. So that's something that we've brought in recently. And that idea of ownership of the language helps us with individual teams. We own the overall material to keep that consistency, that quality control, those approvals, but they just have to worry about the local language, and they're the ones that would know best. So each local language will have a team or an owner, individual owner, to update things.
And Santi, what languages are we teaching Building Bridges in now? It's more than Spanish.
So, sorry, Brad, I don't know where you are, but that was
Yeah,
very
no,
cool.
where'd you go? Oh!
I was like, Brad. Building Bridges is actively taught using materials in English and Spanish, and it's taught in Portuguese and Mandarin using the English slides. We're working on having local slides on those languages as well, and then expand even further later on.
Japanese too, we rolled out Japanese.
Japanese as well, yes, thank you.
Also, it's important to note that we're an English-speaking company. Like, to work at JP Morgan Chase, you have to be able to speak English. But we also want to meet people where they are, because they don't have to be speaking English in the office. If it's Japan, they're usually speaking Japanese if there aren't Americans with them at that time. So it's both of that. From countries where it's not safe, we're not allowed to push content there. So if LGBTQ+ is illegal in any specific country, we can't ever push anything down to them, because we don't want to get any of our employees at risk.
And then another thing that I'll say about the journey itself, everybody in our company obviously has a standard ID, and that identifies where they are. So when they log into our journey, it does filter them into a different track by region. And we work with the local representatives in those areas to find content that's appropriate, to work with them to make sure that we're not doing something that may put anyone at harm. And the other thing, there are things that are very specific to region. For example, if you log into the North America version, it's going to recommend that you recommend that you could write letters to your congresspeople or things of that nature. Well, that obviously doesn't make sense in other countries. So every single country has got a different tract on it, or not every single country, every single region has a different tract on it that is geared towards that. Because culture is a big part of this too.
One more question.
Hi, my name is Omar from Colombia. I'm co-chair from Colombia chapter. And I have a concern. we work as an ally inside of the corporations, you know, like we live in a bubble. But my concern is what to do outside the corporations. In emerging countries as Colombia, Peru, other Latin countries, the environment is still rude, you know, for those of the community that work, live there. What to do in my own case with my grandparents, with my other relatives that are still conservative or in some way for this information. Mm-hmm. What to do with other companies that are not as big as the sponsors that are around here. So what to do to share, to expand all this information in order to spread all this knowledge. Thank you.
Thank you.
It's a difficult question, but it's a very interesting one. I can tell you through my own personal journey as well, because it took me a while to get comfortable with who I am and expressing it openly. There's a few things. So one is we've started piloting building bridges externally. It's at early stages, but hopefully that can help us make a difference. The two things that I try and do personally is one, lead by example, and two, meet people where they are. Some people will be more receptive, some people will be less receptive. Hopefully if you can just have that initial conversation, maybe they'll come back in 6 months' time and be more willing to engage deeply. So try and call people in, not call people out. Some people are just not ready yet to engage in those conversations. So try and lead by example and meet people where they are. Have the conversations in a way that's accessible to them. And hopefully we can keep bringing them in further to hopefully become facilitators with us one day.
Absolutely. And if I can jump in, and to be very clear, not answering on behalf of JP Morgan Chase, but sort of broadly from my perspective here at Out and Equal, I think this is a common question that we get both from folks who work internationally as well as folks who work within the United States. We know there's a lot of struggles here as well. And I think one of the things is that when folks are exploring, I mean, this is a workplace allyship program, but we know we've had these conversations. Folks come to the resource group or to LGBTQ and ally leaders at a firm and say, I know we're here to talk about work, but my kid just transitioned and I have a ton of questions, right? My niece just said that she, they are non-binary. I don't know, what are pronouns, what do I do? You know what I mean? And so it's not necessarily workplace related, but folks bring to the workplace. And so leveraging what you are learning from this content and bringing it back home is powerful. Leveraging that it is also branded and that you did this at work, right? This isn't something sort of radical or outside of the space, but especially I think, you know, my family's from Colombia too, right? And there's definitely a lot of respect for like where you work, the fact that it's a multinational corporation, and the more that we can sort of embed, like we're doing this because it makes business sense, right? This helps me be better at my job. This helps us be better connecting with our clients, with our communities. I think opening up those conversations and literally just go home and at the dinner table, hey, did you know, at work today, I did these, you know, I don't know what you all do. I don't know, you're moving money around. I don't know, right? I'm doing money things. And also, I joined an ally program and I learned about non-binary identity and pronouns. You know what I mean? And so just bringing it does not have to be something that you leave in the office. Bringing those conversations home, exploring, hey, I learned this, you know, there's this ally program, viste esto, qué cosa, whatever it is, just bringing that space home I think is huge as well. And so that's absolutely to co-sign what Santi said, lead by example as well. Brad, I know you want to add something as well.
Always, unfortunately. But, so I agree with everything Isabel said. Mine is, while this is a workplace program, part of the rationale behind us building this program was to create people who could walk outside and carry the message.
Yep.
And you see that in some of the things we ask people to do. So we want that. The other thing that we do is we look for themes that come out. So family is a big one. We spun up a network on family so that we had a concentrated effort on it. Another thing that we do is we invest in nonprofits in places where it's hard. So we give money to nonprofits that are doing good work that, I mean, we're still a bank. There's some things we just can't do. So there's a whole series, there's no one right answer. but there are places around the world and in the United States that still need to come along.
And I'll add something very, very quickly because you asked a very, very big question, but sometimes the solutions and the answers, you know, they're simple. Start with building bridges. That's where we started.
Excellent. I want to thank all of you for your excellent questions and conversation. I'm going to ask that you join me. Let me tell you we're thanking a lot of people. I'm going to ask that you join me in thanking our panelists here, as well as the folks in the audience who are facilitators, and very importantly, thanking our excellent AV team who has led this session, who has kept us mic'd up. Thank you. Thanks to all of you who are joining virtually as well. We are thrilled. Again, the team is here for a few minutes. We do have 30 minutes in between sessions. There is another, no?
Done.
No, we're standing between them and Gala.
Okay, I'm done talking. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.